It is your prisonplanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here on this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal.
Welcome to the Alex Jones Show on this Monday, July 1st, 2013. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, sitting in for Alex today. He will be back tomorrow with some amazing guests. And speaking of amazing guests, we've got today coming up NSA insider Wayne Madsen. So you'll definitely want to stay tuned into that. He has been leaking documents that are now breaking news in the EU, showing that the United States government, well, the NSA, the CIA, and the FBI, I don't know if you can really call them the government, maybe the shadow government, has been bugging the embassies, the diplomats, basically all communications going back to EU countries. So that's big news, big breaking news, and I think The Guardian pulled their story on that after publishing it, so there's some controversy there already. We'll talk to Wayne Madsen later on in the show about that issue. Also coming up today, in the, well, actually just at the bottom of this hour, we've got Greg Caton. He is a resident of Ecuador. He was kidnapped by the U.S. State Department at gunpoint in Ecuador, was illegally extradited. You can't even really use the word extradited because that implies a legal process. He was kidnapped, actually, out of Ecuador, flown back to the United States, and thrown in prison for 2 years. And it turns out that the United States of America actually has a routine habit of kidnapping Americans that they want to kidnap in Ecuador. And the reason that's relevant right now is because, of course, Ed Snowden is seeking asylum in Ecuador and 14 other countries at the moment, according to recent press on drudgereport.com today. 15 countries on his list of possible asylum destinations. So what happens if Ed Snowden ends up in Ecuador and then the U.S. government just decides to kidnap him like they did Greg Caton? Well, we're going to find out by talking to Mr. Caton today to get more information about how that actually works and how lawless and insane it really is. Now, on the world news front, by the way, we've just got a ton of news today on so many fronts, health, politics, finance, you name it. And that's the reason I only have two guests today, because it's just so much news to cover. We've got, of course, the big Egyptian protest, the biggest civil protest in the history of the world, according to some press reports, happening right now. They're trying to throw, I believe his name is Mohamed Morsi, out of office there, the recently elected leader of Egypt, following the uprising against the former dictator. It's a big deal. We're talking about millions of people in the streets right now, and we're talking about the potential for armed conflict. So it could break out into an actual civil war, a shooting war in Egypt. That could happen in just the next few days. Now, I know the U.S. press doesn't tend to cover those things very much, but it's something that you need to know about. Now, in the United States today, one of the big issues that's happening is right here, just a few miles from where I sit here at the InfoWars studio. You've got Texas debating abortion limits, and a big rally, well, two big competing rallies are now forming at the Capitol building just a few miles from here. And you've got police officers in riot gear on horseback. And they're setting up massive barricades all around the state capitol. They brought in police in riot gear from Houston because apparently the Austin police force wasn't large enough, so they had to ship them in from Houston. I guess, are they expecting some kind of a, are they expecting the pro-choice people to have a mad rush into the Capitol and have a coup or something? I mean, I'm not sure what's all the police all about, but things are heating up over there. The Democrats not happy that they can't kill babies after 20 weeks, at 20 weeks of pregnancy. They want to have the right to make sure they can terminate that baby's life at 21 weeks, 24 weeks, 28 weeks, you name it. Hey, they want to kill the baby after it's born and call it post-birth abortion. So they are rallying to protect their, quote, right. to kill babies that are already, humans, of course. I mean, viable human beings whose lives are protected under the Constitution. So that's what's going on right now. We'll be right back after this break with all that breaking news, all those guests, and much more. This is The Alex Jones Show. Stay with us. All right, welcome to the show. This is Monday, July 1st, 2013. This is The Alex Jones Show. Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in for Alex today. Alex will be back tomorrow. Thank you for joining us. We've got, for the next 3 hours, just astonishing news that you can't miss. And let me just give you an example of what we're talking about. And we also have some great guests coming on, including Wayne Madsen, NSA insider, who's been breaking news all over the world. So he'll be joining us in the second hour. But check this out. The Department of Defense is creating a copy of all of us in an alternate reality, well, a virtual reality, to find out how long you can go without food or water, or how you will respond to televised propaganda, writes the Register. It turns out that the DoD is developing a massive, what they call a sentient world simulation. They're creating a massive PSYOP simulator in a complex computer system to simulate the decisions of every sentient being on the planet. They're actually going to populate it with 7 billion little sentient programs, or whatever the actual number is, to find out how you're going to react to their psychological operations. So then they're going to test in the simulation what would happen if they did a false flag attack, for example. How would you react? They're going to test what would happen if they dumped more fluoride into the water and dumbed everybody down a little more. They're going to test probably chemtrail attacks, biological weapons, rolling out more liberal propaganda, like making you think the family is bad, and that the only people that should have rights are undocumented immigrants or people who are not heterosexual, gays, or, they're going to test every possible agenda they can think of in this simulator. So that's just the start of the kind of news that we're going to get into today. This simulator, the Sentient World Simulator, replicates financial institutions, media outlets, and even street corner shops. It applies theories of economics and human psychology, and its developers believe they can predict how individuals and mobs will respond to various stressors. Well, isn't that just delightful? So now we're going to have a PSYOP simulator run by the Department of Defense. And need I remind you, by the way, that Google and NASA, remember Google has ties to the NSA, NASA, part of the federal government, obviously, have just purchased a 512-qubit quantum computer that operates in multiple physical dimensional realities. I mean, this is science fiction becoming real. A 512-qubit quantum computer from a company called D-Wave has just been purchased. Now, a quantum computer is, pardon the pun, but the metaphor, but literally quantum leaps above the processing capability of a normal CPU like you might have in your home computer or even the supercomputer. Quantum computers operate in multiple dimensions, and they will allow these computing systems to achieve things like easy speech recognition, visual recognition. They will allow robots to have tactical thinking, to have reasoning skills, to be able to outthink human beings. There's the article. It's in Scientific American. Google and NASA snap up quantum computer called D-Wave 2. I wrote about this on Natural News last week. It's a big deal because, and I'm going to talk about this later in the show, we are entering an era that is called the rise of the machines. Now, Alex spoke about this last week, and he was right on about it. His analysis is 100% correct. I'm going to add to that analysis today and tell you why the future doesn't need most of you. I know that's shocking to hear, but the rise of robots with quantum computing processing units is going to make most human labor obsolete. And that's going to mean that we're going to have 5 or 6 billion people on the planet that the globalists no longer need. So we'll get into that in more detail. You can only imagine what that means in terms of population control and mass soft kill, genocide, the Holocaust 2.0 that's going to be coming in the next few decades. But let's move on to other news in the meantime. We'll get back to that because that's more of an in-depth topic. Russian forces to provide security at U.S. events. This is a top story on Infowars.com right now. Paul Joseph Watson wrote this. Check this out. FEMA signs a deal with the Russian Emergency Situations Ministry to, quote, exchange experts. Yeah, we're going to exchange some experts so that Russian officials can provide security at mass events in the United States. Oh, yeah. So the sellout of U.S. sovereignty continues. And, of course, FEMA would love to do it. FEMA, of course, the agency that likes to go door to door confiscating people's guns every time there's a hurricane or a flood or a tornado. The first thing they do is say, hey, come in, let's take your guns. Take your guns away. And now we're going to have apparently Russian troops coming in to assist FEMA with that effort. There was a press release released by the Ministry of the Russian Federation for Civil Defense and U.S. officials. They met on June 25th at the 17th Joint U.S.-Russia Cooperation Committee on Emergency Situations, and they said they're going to, quote, exchange experts during joint rescue operations in major disasters. Oh, you mean like major disasters that the U.S. government causes? The ones that they make happen? Now, I'm not saying that every hurricane or tornado or fire is caused by the government, but they can certainly set off their own disasters, such as an epidemic, a release of a bioweapon, a self-replicating weapon that could cause a national disaster. And then they call in the Russians. Because, you know, it's funny, because Steve Quayle has been talking about this for many years. If you go to Steve Quayle's website, stevequayle.com, he's always got headlines that talk about, oh, the Russian troops coming in. That they're already positioned, he says. They're already positioned in key places all around the country. Not a lot of people are talking about that. But now here's further proof in this story that FEMA wants Russian troops to come in and take over in emergency situations. So, see, there you go. There you go. It's all happening right before our very eyes. Now, another story up on Infowars.com by Kit Daniels, one of the newer members of the writing team here. ATF is arming robbers in hatched plots, leaving many dead. Now, this is a huge breaking story, and I think it was USA Today. Yeah, USA Today did a big in-depth investigation. Oh, my God, USA Today was involved in actual journalism. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I love it. I think they did a good job with this one. So the story is like this. ATF agents are setting up these honeypot operations, sting operations, to ensnare would-be armed robbers to say, hey, let's go hit this drug distribution house where they've got a bunch of weed or a bunch of smack or whatever, and they have a lot of cash. Let's go hit them. Let's bring in some guns, you know, shoot a few people, tie up everybody else, take their smack, take their cash, and we've got undercover footage showing this. Well, and it turns out that these little honeypot operations have so far left 7 people dead because the ATF is going out there and recruiting people who bring guns to the sting, and lead starts flying, and people end up dead. And so not everybody in the court system is happy about all of this. In fact, they're saying it's a clear case of entrapment. That, in fact, 1 or 2 federal judges here is on the record. You have to look at the story on Infowars.com. ATF arming robbers is the first headline. That some judges are saying that this is entrapment, this is not legitimate. The ATF is running around recruiting these people and practically making them do this. Well, we know the FBI does the same thing. The FBI plans most of the terror plots that they then foil in the United States. That was right out of the New York Times. The FBI plans the attack. Remember, they planned an attack to blow up a bridge in Cleveland. They planned an attack to fly, what was it, a drone into the Pentagon, I think, or the White House. The FBI comes up with these plots, and then they run around finding these low IQ, mentally impaired individuals who are usually substance addicted. They give them a few beers, they give them some weed, they give them whatever to get them on board to say, yeah, you drive the van, you fly the drone, you set the bombs, whatever. We'll give you more weed, we'll give you more beer, more alcohol, more cash. And then at the very last minute, the FBI, catches these terrorists. Oh, really? Well, they weren't terrorists until the FBI put the plans in their hands. They were just bums on the street, okay? Harmless bums sitting on the street until the FBI came along and recruited them to become terrorists so that the FBI could then claim it's stopping terrorism. And what kind of terrorism is it stopping? The terrorists that it comes up with. So the ATF is now joining the FBI in this little scheme here. Now, I watched some of that video, by the way. It is freaky. You got this African-American dude in there sitting in that car talking about how he's going to cap everybody and how he's done it a million times before and how he's so cool and how he does it high on drugs to make sure that he's clear-headed. This is what he says in the car. This is on the video. I'm just like, wow, man, no wonder I carry a Glock all the time. I mean, people like that come in, I'm going to let loose on them. And no wonder I don't run a drug distribution house. That's not a good career move if you want to stay alive, by the way. Let's move on to some other news. I'm sorry, I got to move faster. We've got so much crazy news, but it's all so insane at every level. We've got single women's insurance premiums for health insurance are going to double in California. That's thanks to Obamacare. Yeah, thank you, Obama, for your gift to single women. Make them pay twice what they used to pay into the monopoly-run health insurance exchanges that have now been mandated by the same Supreme Court that says same-sex couples can marry each other. We'll talk about that in another minute when we come back. This is the Alex Jones Show. The world is insane. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, we're back. This is the Alex Jones Show. Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, editor of naturalnews.com, filling in for Alex today and enjoying the insanity of the news. Let's go to the next insane story. Clorox has unleashed a hate speech ad campaign smearing fathers. Yes, they're attacking fathers, calling them, well, essentially the same as clueless dogs. They're saying that fathers lack the judgment and fine motor skills to take care of children, compares dads to dogs in an online promotional piece called 6 Mistakes That New Dads Make. It accuses dads of being so stupid that they can't put their children's clothes on frontwards. The clothes are on backwards, and they take their babies out in the rain with short sleeves on and sit them down in front of reality TV shows like the Kardashians and probably just incredible. So here we go. Clorox has joined the bandwagon of attacking men. And I don't know about you out there, but I'm sick of it. I'm fed up with it. And I'm not going to put up with it anymore. I'm going to talk about this because if Clorox had said these very same things about blacks or women or gays, they would have been blasted. They would have marches on their headquarters. They would have been just reamed in the mainstream media. But because they chose to attack fathers, well, suddenly it's all funny and it's all okay because dads are always depicted as morons in sitcoms and TV shows and movies and the popular press and apparently by Clorox as well. So I have announced over on Natural News a boycott of Burt's Bees. You may say, wait a minute, what's Burt's Bees got to do with anything here? Well, Clorox owns Burt's Bees. So I think that all dads out there should stop buying Clorox and stop buying Burt's Bees products to protest this attack, this hate speech attack against men. And here's some of the quotes that they say. Some fathers, men, dads have been inspired by raunchy comedies to bring babies to inappropriate places like casinos, pool halls, and poetry readings. This is actually from Clorox. This is hate speech against men. Now, what I'm wondering is, why is this okay to always attack men? And the answer is because the system is trying to destroy families and especially trying to destroy men. And last week, when Alex covered with Ben Fuchs on this show, the feminization of men through BPA chemicals, plastics, chemicals, hormone mimickers that are just throughout the food supply, throughout food packaging. he hit on something that's very true that the White House is denying, that these chemicals tend to feminize males. So you've got the male population in America is shifting towards a metrosexual kind of stance, a feminization, where they're no longer willing to stand up for any of their rights. And that's part of the agenda, I think, is to get men to not stand up for their rights. Men are supposed to be the warrior archetype, the protectors of the family, part of the family unit working in cooperation with their wives to raise healthy children. But now the system wants to say, well, men are morons and only women can change diapers. And that's what Clorox has jumped on to. And of course, they heard an earful from men who were tired of being smeared for being men, and they pulled that campaign off of the internet. But of course, we linked to it, a cached version of it, so you can still see what it says. But this is a kind of sexism. And I'm wondering, when is the civil rights movement for men going to be formed? When is that going to take off? And when is the civil rights movement for maligned Caucasians going to take off? Because today it is apparently okay to use racial slurs, cracker this, cracker that, against white men, and especially against fathers, as Clorox just did. It's okay to bash whites. It's okay to bash men, to blame them for everything. Civil rights is supposed to be about all men and women are created equal, regardless of your color. And I denounce racism, and I know that Alex does as well. Here at InfoWars, we denounce racism. We denounce corporate smear campaigns against men and against fathers and against women. We would jump to the same defense if they were attacking gays or women or African Americans, because we actually believe in civil rights. That is, that all men and women are created equal, and that they all deserve equal protection and equal dignity in our culture. So enough of the attacks on white men and fathers, Clorox. Get it through your stinking heads. Fire your marketing department and grow up and go back and read your history books. Read Martin Luther King. Judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, okay? Get it through your heads. We're sick of it. We've had enough of it. We'll be right back. I refuse to be censored and silenced by the bigots out there who say that anything that a white man says criticizing the position or the policy of a black president is automatically racist. I refuse to play that stupid mind game, all right? We're going to lay it out straight in every case, and we're going to fight for the civil rights of everybody, regardless of their skin color, regardless of their religion. I mean, this is the libertarian principle, that we think you should be free to live your life with minimum intervention, or least government intervention possible. Even if I don't agree with your position or your religion or even your sexual orientation, I'm not going to go out there and push my beliefs on you. But at the same time, I don't want you to push your beliefs on me. It's a two-way street. You got to respect and tolerate each other and have dignity for each other. That's the way it works. So when I criticize an Obama policy, that's not racism, people. That's me criticizing a policy or a behavior or a speech or a decision of a person. It's not racism just because he happens to have more skin pigmentation. That's ridiculous. I mean, come on. Part of the problem, and by the way, we've got Greg Caton coming up in just a second here to talk about the U.S. government kidnapping Americans in Ecuador. But part of the problem is that we have gone past the threshold where most Americans can actually parse language, where you can actually communicate to them at a linguistic level of sufficient cognitive understanding, grasping the concepts that are trying to be discussed. And I think a great example of this was defense witness at the Zimmerman trial, Rachel Jeantel. I don't know how she was brought up or what chemicals she was exposed to, but she cannot parse language. She is illiterate. That is not a racist comment just because she's black. If a white woman was on the stand and did the same things, she would be illiterate. She is a victim of the system, people. I'm not criticizing her as a person. I'm saying she is a victim of the system, of the mass fluoride poisoning, of the heavy metals in the food, the pesticides in the food. all of the environmental chemicals that are put out there, the BPA and others, the chemtrails, are killing the brain function of people everywhere, and we're starting to see that when a woman gets on the stand like that, a 19-year-old woman, and can't read, something is wrong with our country, and she is a victim, all right? And that's not racist to say that. I'm defending her against the system that's trying to poison her and kill her. It's sad. It saddens my heart to see a 19-year-old African-American woman, Haitian heritage, growing up in Miami, who can't really speak in coherent sentences. Something is wrong with that. We need to protect all of us, all of our children, our young girls and boys, teenagers, black, white, Asian, you name it. We all are being victimized and poisoned by this system. We all need protection against the global elite that are trying to kill us. And I think she's just an example of just how bad it has gotten. So my heart goes out to her. I hope we can find a way to help her heal. Let's go to our guest, Greg Caton. Now, let me give you a quick background. He's joining us by Skype. This was a big deal. You know how Edward Snowden says he may be seeking asylum in Ecuador? Well, that may not work out for him in the way that he thinks it will. And the reason is because the U.S. State Department has a track record of kidnapping American citizens in Ecuador who are breaking no laws whatsoever, but that America wants to bring back to America to persecute for its own political reasons. Now, this has already happened to this gentleman, Greg Caton, a man who I've known for many years because I wrote about him when this happened several years ago. He joins us by Skype now. Thank you, Greg, and welcome to the Alex Jones Show.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
Well, it's great to have you on, Greg, and I would like you to lay out briefly the story of what happened to you, because back a couple of years ago when it happened, no one believed us. Today, people believe more of the rogue shadow operation. So I want you to lay out what happened to you so that people can get this story, and now they will believe it.
Well, actually, a kidnapping attempt was made against me in November of 2008. So I knew they would probably try it again. What happened is I had a business associate by the name of Dr. Neville Solomon, and these geniuses at the State Department, because I guess we're the same height, gringos, we kind of stand out, kind of stood out in Guayaquil. Actually, because I had been living there, confused him for me and actually kidnapped him and his 15-year-old son, Michael. And only after interviewing them and for a period of 30 minutes were they able to figure out, oh my God, we've kidnapped the wrong guy.
And when you say they, were these the State Department officials, or had they bribed locals?
The protocol they normally use is, and this is done all over the world, by the way. Most people don't know this has been codified in actually all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. When I was kidnapped and brought back to the United States in Louisiana, I had a defense attorney by the name of Randall McCain out of Lafayette, Louisiana, who defended me. And one of the first things he told me on the very first meeting, he says, you don't see, because I was saying this was all illegal. Can't you do anything about this as part of my demons? He says, no, I can't do anything about it. The U.S. Supreme Court has codified it. We will kidnap anybody, anywhere we want, for any reason. We don't need a justification. All this talk about extradition this and extradition that and political asylum, it's all smoke and mirrors. I got to tell you right now, it's all smoke and mirrors.
So, Greg, this is big breaking news right now. And sorry about the delay if I'm talking over you, because you're joining us from Ecuador, a little bit of delay in the Skype. But this is big breaking news, folks. Not only is the United States government running death squads that we know assassinate people like Breitbart and Michael Hastings and many others, Gary Webb, I think, was another case. They are also running globally kidnapping schemes against innocent Americans like you, Greg, because again, you were engaged in selling a rainforest herbal topical salve, like a skin cream, that was perfectly legal to sell in Ecuador. You were breaking no laws whatsoever.
We still do. That's the whole thing about it. We still do. I mean, you know, we sell Amazonian, you know, medicinal herbs, ship all over the world. It was never illegal. In fact, actually, not even the overt reason that they claimed they were kidnapping. They said it was because of a probation violation, And the truth is that I had someone, while I was in prison the first time, an employee who embezzled over $20,000 from us. And after I got out, I did an audit of our books and discovered it all. And when she found out that I was going to go to the authorities, she immediately went and started talking to prosecutors, trying to get my probation revoked with under the logic that, well, if I can put this guy away in prison, no matter how many criminal acts I committed, I'll be able to get it all covered up, and I'll even get the support of prosecutors.
So
by the way,
you were set up.
Oh, completely set up. And I knew I was being set up. So here I am in a room in downtown Guayaquil with the guy that's right under President Correa. At the time, it was the fellow who was the Minister of Government, and his name was Gustavo Lorea. I'm sitting there with him, and I'm sitting with the governor of Guayas province. And people who don't know much about Ecuador, Guayas province, out of the 24 provinces in Ecuador, it is the wealthiest. It is the center of commerce. Guayaquil is like the New York City of Ecuador, except far more influential. It's like it's the 800-pound gorilla, commercially speaking, in the Ecuadorian economy. So, and they're assuring me, telling me, do you really believe, as if I'm an insane person, right? As if I must be insane for suggesting that over something as is something as insignificant as a probation violation, which I didn't commit in the first place, by the way, which was supposedly that I was making H3O, the product that I was manufactured, that I had in the United States. That they're gonna. It's like it's one step away from saying we need to kidnap this guy. We're the United States government. We're going to the crane. This guy has an overdue parking ticket. We need to kidnap him and bring him back. Right. He's overdue. We're going to get that $50. Okay.
Right, but they did. And by the way, back your microphone off your mouth a little bit, getting a little bit of static there, a little hot. But they did come kidnap you, which astonished the Ecuadorian officials. I know Correa himself was jaw-droppingly astonished that the U.S. would violate international law, would actually bring agents in there to conduct an armed operation against you in your own driveway to kidnap you, take you out of the country illegally, while at the same time people like Obama accuse Hong Kong of violating the rule of law for not turning over Edward Snowden. I mean, what hypocrisy.
Well, it's beyond hypocrisy. On April 17th of 2012, there was a committee here. It's an immigration committee that decides difficult cases. And what the ruling of the Ecuadorian government is that what happened to me was completely without legal foundation, which is kind of a sweet, euphemistic way of saying, hey, United States government, you were rogues, you committed a rogue operation, and everything you did to this man is illegal. Now, what's the proof of that? I'm just kind of saying this on your air. What is the proof of that? Well, the proof of that is that I'm here because in any country in the world, if you are deported for felony, any kind of felony, if you're deported, you're not coming back. You're not welcome back in a country that once you've been deported for legal reasons. So what they did is all the mention of my deportation and the records of the Ecuadorian government have been completely expunged. Why? Because it was illegal.
And in fact, kidnapping. You are an entrepreneur, a very successful one, I would say, who is, in fact, helping the Ecuadorian economy, bringing value to their rainforest, the renewable resources, the medicinal resources that people are being paid to harvest, and your company is packaging them and shipping them out. You're bringing jobs and also exporting health products to the other nations of the world that don't have the climate to have a rainforest. In fact, I mean, you should be given a medal or something by Correa for a humanitarian award for what you're doing.
He's got a seriously. I don't. Correa's got a tough job. I mean,
yeah, I know. I'm just saying you're a good guy. You're not a criminal guy.
Right, and the very fact that and then the other proof, people sometimes raise their eyebrow when I say that everything that was put on, when I was put on the Interpol red list and my name was oh
yeah, I want to talk about Interpol.
Oh yeah. You know Osama, my first cousin, Osama bin Laden.
Right, they had your face right next to Osama bin Laden and other like serial killers and war criminals. The State Department managed to get you put on Interpol.
The proof that everything that the FDA and Interpol said was completely false is the fact that I'm here because I had my passport renewed in August of 2011. If I had had any kind of pending criminal charge that is even closely, remotely similar to the things that the FDA and Interpol were saying, they wouldn't have even renewed my passport. Anyone who's ever gotten a passport knows you can't even be arrears on your child support payments now and get a United States passport, let alone have, the criminal charges for hurting people with, because you're
but they got their pound of flesh out of you because they put you in prison for, what was it, almost 2 years in Louisiana? Well,
the total time was 21 months. They give you 15% off. They give you a fig leaf of good time. And
so they put you in prison, and you had to do the prison time, and then when you got out, they renewed your passport, and you went back to Ecuador, and Ecuador welcomed you back in, and there you are now running an admirable business yet again.
Correct.
It's incredible.
I think what disturbs me, and I don't know that this has really been even conveyed to your audience, the rapidity with which it's getting worse. Now, for instance, in my case, at least, I can say I had the privilege of having a kangaroo court. It was all nonsense. The State Department is there basically dictating to the Ecuadorian judge just exactly how to violate the law. And by the way, I don't know what's ever happened to that judge, but I know that they'll never disclose to me what disciplinary measures they took against the people who were paid off on this side to do this.
But Greg, I want to make sure we get though to the other kidnappings that are taking place there.
Well, let's talk about James Martin Malone. This is a guy who, unlike myself, James Martin Malone was a guy. He's a few years younger than myself. I think he's something like 54 now. Anyways, in 1990, roughly 23 years ago, Marty was doing a job for somebody. He was transporting things along in his car, and he got caught up in some kind of in a drug bust for transporting drugs. And the prosecutor has since admitted there's really no evidence that this guy ever had conscious knowledge that of all the things he had in his car, that it included cocaine. Anyways, make a long story short, guy gets 22 years and finds a way to get out. Or maybe he's on bail, I can't remember, but he gets to Ecuador, and he lives here safely for a period of 22 years. And by the way, this was big news down here in Ecuador. I knew this guy personally. His wife was the general manager of one of my companies, an Ecuadorian company that I had. So I'm very, very intimate. This is not hearsay. This is not because I read it in the paper down here. This is somebody I knew. We ate lunch together regularly. His wife.
So what happened? What did they do?
This guy gets into a tiff with his wife. I guess they were separated or something. And she knew that he had legal issues back in the United States. So he gets a hold of local officials there in Santa Elena, Provincia de Santa Elena. And they pick him up, stick him on a plane, and take him back. No law, no judge, no court, no nothing. All this talk I hear about, Ecuador, they don't have an extradition treaty with the United States. It's all nonsense. It's all nonsense.
So what we're seeing globally is a pattern of complete lawlessness where the United States government will do anything it wants, violate any law it wants. I mean, Obama's got secret kill lists. I guess they're not even that secret anymore, of Americans that he's going to have killed. Drone strikes on civilian, weddings and parties all over the Middle East, killing women and children. And now we've got that it has come out that the U.S. government is spying on its EU allies. The United States is getting a reputation for being a lawless rogue nation, kind of like the way we used to think of North Korea.
That's what we see down here. I mean, and we see it in many different ways. And by the way, I'm not saying anything that's counter to the official message of the Ecuadorian government. You hear President Correa, he gives a weekly address here on Saturdays. You remember that, right, Mike?
Yeah, I remember listening to some of that.
And, he's constantly railing. On the one hand, it's not that Ecuador is in any kind of unfriendly posture to the United States. There's a very, very, Ecuadorians go to Miami all the time. I mean, there's trade back and forth. There's very good feelings, but it's like the relationship between Ecuador and the United States is kind of like the wife who says to her husband, you will not disrespect me. You're not going to call me a bitch. If you fight with me, you're going to fight fair. You're going to respect my feelings. You're going to respect my opinions, and you're not going to disrespect me. It's that kind of a thing. And so you constantly have this thing. It's not like Ecuador is saying, we hate the United States.
No, not at
Ecuador,
all. But
Correa's made it very, very. He's a graduate, as you know, of the University of Illinois in economics. He calls himself a half gringo. He refers to himself kind of affectionately as a half gringo. His mother lives in Orange County, California.
Let's bring it back to Snowden, though, Greg. What would happen if Ed Snowden goes to Ecuador, to seek asylum there. I want your assessment of what exactly would happen to him there, because it is very likely that the Ecuadorian government cannot protect him from, let's say, a U.S. Navy SEAL team or something like that if the U.S. really wants to get him. But let's talk about that when we come back with Greg Caton, the Amazon rainforest herbal formulator who was kidnapped by U.S. State Department authorities. We'll be right back. All right, so this is big breaking news. This is the Alex Jones Show, and we have an exclusive interview with a man who was kidnapped from Ecuador by the United States government over the crime of selling medicinal herbal products that help people get healthier, if you can believe that. There's nothing I won't believe anymore in terms of what the government will do to oppress freedom. So the question to you, Greg, is what would happen if Edward Snowden actually were granted asylum in Ecuador and relocated to Ecuador? Do you think he would be safe there? Could Correa's administration protect him?
Well, I can only give you my opinion based on what I've experienced here. Others that I've known have been kidnapped, and so forth. He wouldn't have any semblance of a life that you and I would call free. I mean, he would have to be under some kind of military. He'd have to be guarded. He'd have to, because based on the fact that this is apparently such a big piece of theater for the U.S. government. You had Biden down here actually telling Correa, you will not give this guy political asylum. And basically what Correa did, this was in the news here, he was very respectful to Biden. He said, I respect your opinions. If he ever comes to Ecuador, if he does, you will be the first ones we call to get your input on the subject, but the final decision must be ours. It's again the thing of respect our sovereignty, okay? Respect that we are a sovereign nation. So my opinion, based on what I've seen here, one of two things would happen if he wasn't in some kind of almost a military prison with the special forces protection. One, he'd either be kidnapped, they'd pay somebody who's corrupt within the police force to kidnap him, very much like they did in my case, or John Perkins, they're going to send in the jackals. It's going to be one or the other. But Greg, he's not going to have a life that you and I would call
Greg,
free.
Alex is joining us on the phone. Pop in for a second for an important comment on this topic. Stay on the line with us, Greg. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. He's welcome in the 5 minutes after this segment to finish up the story with riveting radio. I just want to put some context to this. Can you guys hear me good?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. I'm taking the kids fishing today. I appreciate you doing the show. I'm coming back to work tonight. Look. There's an article on drudgereport.com on the right-hand side. Top story. Russian troops and Russian security forces advise at U.S. public events. What is this about? This is about global governance, State Department Memorandum 7277, international treaty, where the diplomatic immunity, mercenaries, Interpol, police, can go anywhere in the world and grab anybody they want and ignore extradition laws. And that's how Americans can be visiting Germany. And they say the Holocaust didn't happen and they get arrested and put in prison for 5 years. Now, whether you think that happened or not, I think Hitler was bad and killed a bunch of people. They use cases like that to set the precedent where now they're going to arrest you if you deny man-made global warming. And they're calling for arresting us. So this is global government where we have no rights. And these multinational globalists can even send in mercenaries.
Right.
And that's why we have Mexican troops at Katrina. That's why U.S. troops are in Canada for the Olympics patrolling the streets.
Well, the same death squads. The same death squads, Alex, that they sent after Hastings or Breitbart or the assassins. I mean, they are operating globally.
Yeah, exactly. It came out in mainstream U.S. news, the back of the paper 5 years ago, that former Latin American death squads hired by the CIA, more than 10,000 of them, were brought in to run death squads in Baghdad. This is a global mafia that does whatever it wants. I remember reading national news about this guy's case where the FDA just wanted to persecute somebody for selling a salve. I mean, give me a break. And so they went after him. And so I wanted to be able to finish the story, but I think it's important for people just to know in the context of Hastings, dying with the death squads and Aaron Schwartz and the D.C. Madam and on and on and on.
Yeah, we're going to break, Alex. We'll be back in 1 minute.
Sure, I'm done. Just come back.
And we're back at the top of the second hour. This is the Alex Jones Show. Mike Adams filling in for Alex today, who was just joining us in the last segment with some very important points. We are interviewing Greg Caton, and Alex mentioned how we are dealing with a global lawless mafia that will run kidnapping operations anywhere it wants in any country, that respects no law, no sovereignty whatsoever. Remember the work of John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, where he describes exactly what they did in Central and South America to assassinate leaders, to overthrow governments, to put governments in debt to U.S. interests. And this kind of thing continues, and Greg Caton joins us for the rest of this segment. He is one of the many victims of the U.S.-run international kidnapping operations, and this is an exclusive interview here on Infowars.com. So, Greg, before you got interrupted there, you were finishing your assessment of what you think might happen to Edward Snowden if he is granted asylum in Ecuador. You want to finish that thought?
Yeah, it's simply that he wouldn't be a free man. He's not going to be like, you know, if I want to leave here and I want to go down to, you know, Coffee Tree or one of the other gringo hangouts here and talk to my friends, because here in Cuenca you've got, you know, 5,000 Americans who are down here. And by the way, it would surprise you, even you who, and I know you'd lived here, to know how many people are flooding down here and the percentage of them that are here because of just the frightening events that you and Alex have been reporting.
Exactly. Right.
You know, you know, I mean, I personally, just by way of example, I personally, this is a very close person friend, I personally know of a rancher in Montana that moved down here because he went hunting and he ran into a railroad spur and saw with his own eyes. What the hell is this? He found boxcars 3 levels high, shackles all around the perimeter. Every other boxcar had a guillotine in it. And, of course, you know, he's just got this huge, gigantic WTF going on in the back of his mind. He got out. He said, any country would do this.
We keep hearing these rumors of guillotines, and I don't know why. I mean, doesn't anybody have pictures or something?
Well, there's YouTubes of them. You just type in guillotine and use the YouTube filters for the last month. There is more of them surfacing, yes.
I'm not sure I can even spell it because, according to the Clorox Corporation, I'm a retard since I'm a male.
Oh, I know. Oh, my God. It's getting ridiculous. But people, I think the most important message as it pertains to my case, as it pertains to the case of James Martin Malone, who was taken from here without even so much as seeing any official. They just grabbed him and took him, you know, mafia style. The most important thing is for people to know that any time you see the word extradition, it's part of a non-existent mythology. So it's a mythology. Right. We don't have extraditions anymore. We have kidnappings. They're not extraditions.
It's a shadow system of injustice that operates in parallel with the delusional fake justice system that's just for show for the public. But underneath it all, there's this shadow rogue system of criminal mafia global government. That's what's really running the show.
That's what's real. And you know what? They know that down here. They know that down here. You know, there's, you know, I haven't met any officials, and they know what's going on. You know, I met. I'm not going to say his name on the air because he's well known here. He very closely became the president of Ecuador himself. He is currently one of Correa's ministers, and I was up in his offices, and he took me to his conference room. He and I alone, no security people, none of his subordinates, nobody, just he and I. And
got 1 minute left.
Okay. Anyways, the long and short of it is, he said to me, you know, we know this is going on. And he compared my case. I was actually stunned to St. John of the Cross. He said this was a man that was tortured and put in prison and everything else. And out of it, St. John of the Cross wrote the most magnificent literature ever penned in the Spanish language. So they know that the prison system in the U.S. is very hokey. They know it, and they express it in a variety of ways.
The website for Greg Caton is herbhealers.com. Did I get that right, Greg?
Right, HERB, and then healers.com. Yeah.
Okay, herbhealers.com. If you want to take advantage of his fascinating Amazon herbal products, just giving him a plug for thanking him for coming on the show. Greg, best to you. Stay safe. Keep us posted if any more action happens in Ecuador, all right?
Very, very well. We'll do.
Thank you. All right, continuing with the Alex Jones Show. This is the second hour. We just finished up an interview with Greg Caton, an American citizen who was kidnapped at gunpoint in Ecuador by the rogue United States government that runs like a global mafia, running kidnapping and assassination squads everywhere in the world. including domestically in the United States. If you think Michael Hastings' car just blew up for no reason, you know, you probably need to rethink that. We've got a clip here that we want to go to from an interview with Julian Assange, who is all of a sudden back in the news, headlining a lot of news reports because of course, the Ed Snowden situation. Check out this interview, this segment. Let's go to the 8-minute and 40-second segment of this interview, guys. Go ahead and roll that.
Look, there is no stopping the publishing process at this stage. Great care has been taken to make sure that Mr. Snowden can't be pressured by any state to stop the publication process. I mean, the United States, by cancelling his passport, has left him for the moment marooned in Russia. Is that really a great outcome by the State Department? Is that really what it wanted to do? I think that's every citizen has the right to their citizenship. To take someone's principal component of citizenship, their passport, away from them is a disgrace. Mr. Snowden hasn't been convicted of anything. There are no international warrants out for his arrest. To take a passport from a young man in a difficult situation like that is a disgrace. He is a hero. He is told people.
There we go. That's the part I wanted to roll there. A couple of important points there. Number one, the State Department takes away Snowden's passport, marooning him, says Assange, in the Russian airport, and then the State Department accuses Russia of holding on to him. Well, it's the State Department that took his passport away, making it impossible for him to travel. So once again, the government is causing the problem that it's accusing Snowden of, or Russia of causing. So, and the other thing here is that Assange says that Snowden's information will get out, that it cannot be stopped. This is crucial because what you are witnessing here is a global war, an info war at the highest levels between truth tellers, citizens, global citizens who want to expose the darkest secrets of how government is actually run. And we're going to have Wayne Madsen, by the way, coming up in about 20 minutes to give us more details on that, some of the darkest secrets of how government is actually run. You know, they say you should never ask a sausage maker how a sausage is made, otherwise you'll never eat it. Well, by the same token, you should never ask your government how it runs government, because if you knew, you'd be outraged, you'd be marching on the Capitol. So what people like Julian Assange and Edward Snowden are doing is simply bringing these facts to the surface, to give the people the transparency that Obama promised to give people, but then betrayed people over by keeping and, in fact, expanding more secrets. So Snowden wants to bring this out in the public, and he has taken steps. This is what's important to understand. He has taken steps to make sure that additional information will be leaked if anything happens to him. I think he has what I might call an info dead man switch in place. In fact, I'm 100% certain this is the case, even though I don't have any inside info on it. But if I were Snowden, I would do that. So if anything happens to him, if he winds up dead, gets blown up in a car like Hastings, or suddenly dies from a heart attack like Breitbart the day before he was going to release some damning information on Obama, well then, guess what? The dead man switch is activated, and probably all kinds of damning information is going to get released. So right now, the U.S. government needs to be thinking very carefully about how they're going to treat Edward Snowden, because if they try to go after him and kill him, I think they are going to probably set in motion some things that could result in the downfall of the current criminal administration, which is, of course, what Assange would probably like to see, and what Snowden would like to see, and I think many freedom lovers everywhere would like to see. Let's go on to some other news, and then we'll come back to some clips in a minute. But check this out. The teen that was charged for wearing an NRA T-shirt has had the charges dismissed against him. A 14-year-old student named Jared Markham. The charges have been dismissed by a judge. He was facing 1 year in jail for wearing a shirt that said to protect your First Amendment. I mean, Look at the irony of that. Arrested for saying protect our constitutional rights, arrested by a police officer who swore an oath to defend the Constitution, and then arrested the teen for wearing a T-shirt that says defend the Constitution. This is how crazy it has become. That story is up on Infowars.com by Paul Joseph Watson right now. By the way, another important point about that story is that the judge imposed a gag order that would have prevented Markham from discussing anything about the case in public, because, of course, you can't allow someone who's wearing a T-shirt that says protect the First Amendment to have the First Amendment right. That would just be too much freedom in America. Too much freedom. You can't give people too much freedom. All right, here's another story that will blow your mind. Again, there's no way we can even cover all this today. Hospitals and cancer centers are now getting women drunk at mammogram parties, liquoring them up so that they can then get mammograms that give them a false diagnosis of cancer. This is being called a form of medical date rape. Yeah, medical date rape. And I wouldn't be surprised if lots of women come out and defend this practice. Yeah, we have the right to get drunk and then get irradiated with mammograms and then get dosed up with chemotherapy and have our breasts removed surgically with double mastectomies. That's our right. I wouldn't be surprised to find some women out there doing that. It's just another medical abuse and exploitation of women. Where does it end, folks? Where does it end? And those of us who try to speak up for women and try to speak up for civil rights and for human rights and for freedoms, we're always labeled sexist and racist. Oh, we're so terrible for mentioning that everybody's rights should be equally protected. All right, major change coming to the security lines at Denver International Airport. They've got dogs sniffing you now, TSA dogs. we could offer some inappropriate jokes on this, but I'll skip it. But the dogs are apparently easy to train to sniff you in the same areas that the TSA is normally touching. So wow, very useful to sniff you. And of course, they managed to find some passengers that were raving about, oh, we love the dogs sniffing us as if we're criminals carrying drugs all the time. All right, Colorado's gun control laws go into effect Monday. That's today. Yeah, that is either today or next week. I'll have to check it out. But so you're not going to be able to buy guns without going through a universal background check, which means you can't even sell a gun to your own son or family member or father or uncle. And the ban on high-capacity magazines, anything that holds more than 15 rounds. So in Colorado now, if you have to do battle with a gang of meth heads that's coming to raid your ranch, your rifle can only have 15 rounds in it, while the meth heads can have 30 or 100 even. So this bill is going to put law-abiding citizens at a tactical disadvantage against criminal gangs, which is, of course, the whole point of gun control, to turn everybody into a victim. And that story, by the way, is out of the Denver Post. All right, a story from Ron Paul. If you like the surveillance state, you'll love E-Verify. Part of the government's new mandate for employers is E-Verify that requires Americans to carry a, quote, tamper-proof Social Security card in order to get a job. So you got to show the card to your employer, and then the employer has to verify the eligibility by running it through a federal database, which means the federal government will then have a log, a record of every person, where they were on what day applying for which job. How's that? Isn't that wonderful? Just more police state antics from the Obama administration. Now, the UK government has banned GMOs from Parliament, but forces them on the public. Isn't this interesting? You know how Monsanto banned GMOs from its own cafeteria? And you know the global elite, they don't eat GMOs. They eat all organics. They drink raw milk, not pasteurized processed milk. But, of course, they always say that the public should eat the things that they won't because, you know, the poisons have got to go somewhere. How would they get rid of them if they didn't have people eat them all the time? So GMO's banned from Parliament, but still good enough for the common people. But hey, at least Europe is, banning more GMOs than the United States. I think GMOs are required to be labeled in something like 56 countries around the world, something like that. But not in America, no. Moving on, next story, the NSA can obtain 1 billion cell phone calls a day and store them and listen to them. This is more information coming out of The Guardian, and Glenn Greenwald, the journalist that has been covering the Ed Snowden situation. And, by the way, I want to talk about... we're going to break. We'll do that when we get back. But last piece here in this segment, the implementation of online insurance exchanges, this is the Obamacare insurance exchange, could be worse than the Y2K predictions. Y2K was a walk in the park compared to the state insurance exchanges, which are undoubtedly not going to be ready in time, which I think is October 1. So get ready for those to crash and burn while you're trying to get your Obama mandated health insurance. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is the Alex Jones Show. I want to remind you to help support this broadcast. Check out the Pro Pure water filters, 10% off right now. These are the only water filters that have an integrated fluoride filter that removes most of the fluoride. Not all of it. It's very difficult to get that out, but most of it, greatly reducing your exposure to it. You can check that out at InfoWarsStore.com. Also, this video, State of Mind, the Psychology of Control, is coming out. This looks amazing. In fact, I'm going to steal this copy probably and take it with me, because I've been hearing the interviews here on Alex Jones by the creators of this film, and they are smart guys, brilliant actually, and I'm really looking forward to seeing this film. It's got all kinds of great people in it: John Rappaport, Ed Griffin, and many others. Alex Jones is in the film as well. State of Mind, check that out. It's on sale right now, but shipping, I think, later. It's available for sale now, but shipping in a few days, something like that. Is that right, guys? Shipping later? Well, anyway, check it out on InfoWarsStore.com. We've also got the Survival Seed Center there at InfoWars Store, and InfoWarsHealth.com, where you can check out the many health products that are recommended by people like Ben Fuchs, who I really love his information. The guy is absolutely brilliant. You got Enerfood, Superfood products, the Survival Seed Vault, Beyond Tangy Tangerine, many other products there. Check it out at InfoWarsHealth.com. Your support helps support this show and makes this possible. Because remember, the alternative media is now the new mainstream media. So InfoWars, Natural News, Drudge Report, people like Gerald Celente and others, we are really the new journalism, because we're the ones who are out there telling the truth and not just parroting, White House lies and deceptions. And I know there are others out there that are trying to be kind of alternative media, like RT, but then RT went off and attacked the Second Amendment, totally discrediting themselves in that process, saying that we should turn in our guns and things like that. So I'm not ever going on there again, because I'm not going to support a foreign-funded media that's trying to take away our constitutional rights. So I'm just not going to participate in that. I'm going to support people like Alex Jones and InfoWars who are about liberty and who don't have some big corporate boss telling them what to do. That's the thing you got to realize. That, see, Alex Jones has no boss. He can't be fired. You are his boss. You, the listeners, you are his boss. I'm in the same boat. I have no boss. I can't be fired. That's why I can write stories about Rachel Jeantel. I can be critical of things that are not politically correct. I refuse to be censored by political correctness. I can have an intelligent discussion about topics that will get me called a racist for mentioning that maybe we should stop attacking, white people for everything in the media. I'm going to get called a racist for that. I don't care, because we're winning at so many levels. We are gaining the audience. We're growing in influence. We are the ones who are telling the truth, and thank you for your support. We're here to serve you. That's why we do this. Alex and I have had these conversations. If everything was okay in the world, we would both probably be at our farms on a John Deere tractor, farming. We wouldn't even be doing this. We do this because we have to serve humanity. We have to shine the light on basic freedoms, fundamental, the philosophy of liberty. This is worth fighting for. That's why we're here fighting for this. So thank you for your support. We're going to keep doing this for as long as we can, and help pass the torch on to the next generation of people who can take over this job and continue it, because this is a never-ending fight for liberty and freedom. And don't be fooled by fake alternative media that are actually funded by foreign governments, okay? Now, let's move on to some other news. The HIV vaccine experiment infects 41 volunteers. So get this. The NIH certified study included 2,500 men who were having sex with other men, according to the release, or having sex with transgender individuals. They were assigned to receive the experimental vaccine HVTN505. Sounds like someone's license plate. And the other half were given a placebo. Well, it turns out that 41 of the men who were given the vaccine actually were given HIV. Wow. So once again, more proof that the vaccines give you the diseases that they claim to be stopping. And it reminds me of last year, the Merck scientists came out in a whistleblower lawsuit against Merck that said Merck knew its measles vaccines were causing measles, that its vaccines were not effective at blocking the diseases that it claimed to block. And so that lawsuit, I don't know where it's gone since then, but that was filed last year. Vaccines are a vector to infect you with the disease that they claim to be blocking, okay? If you get vaccines, you're poisoning yourself. That's all there is to it. The proof is out there. We'll be right back. This is the Alex Jones Show. Wayne Madsen, straight ahead. We're continuing on the Alex Jones Show. Thank you for joining us. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, filling in for Alex. He'll be back tomorrow. He's off today. So thanks for tuning in. We've got Wayne Madsen coming up right now. Now, Madsen is, of course, an NSA insider. He's got a lot of information. He's been a frequent guest on this show, and he's been on the money, on the mark, every time with everything that he has said. It's all come out. It's all come true. And he was involved, I believe, in the leaking of information to the press in the EU that recently broke. We'll let him clarify that if I'm wrong, about the U.S. government spying on its own allies, European governments. And there's some controversy about that story, and here to help explain and navigate that is Wayne Madsen himself. Mr. Madsen, welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. It's great to have you back on. Can you hear me, sir? I don't think you can hear me. Can you hear me, Wayne?
I can not hear you, no.
All right, now. All right, good to hear you. Welcome to the show, sir.
Oh, good to be with you.
Good to hear your voice. Now, you've been spot on with your predictions, but tell us what is the deal with, I think, The Guardian pulling its story that it initially published announcing that the U.S. government was spying on its European allies. What's the story behind that story?
Well, the story behind the story, unfortunately, what I told the Observer, and that's a sister newspaper, The Guardian, they're owned by the same company. I told the reporter for the Observer, I said, look, German Chancellor Merkel and French President Hollande are crying about the fact that this cable tap was discovered because of the Ed Snowden revelations on the transatlantic 14 cable that goes from Denmark to the Netherlands to Germany to Belgium to France and then over to the UK and then to Tuckerton, New Jersey. They said, oh, you're spying on the communications of German and French citizens. When in fact, both these countries, Germany to a much bigger extent than France, have been engaged in providing signals intelligence data, including information tapped from submarine cables to the NSA for decades, and it hasn't stopped. So, you know, they're crying crocodile tears because what they don't want their own populations to know is that that they themselves are spying on their own citizens, and some of this information, I would suggest a large part of the information, is being sent to NSA that's so overwhelmed with data now they have to build a 17-football field data center in Utah that can handle 1 yottabyte. And don't ask me how many zeros are after that number. 1 yottabyte of data. But this is why what I told the Observer. I gave them 2 declassified documents. I don't have any classified documents. I haven't worked at NSA for a long, long time. But I also know what's declassified and what those documents meant at the time they were still classified.
What's interesting, though, Wayne, is that the things that you've been saying and the declassified documents that you are able to access and acquire, they suddenly have more relevance and context in the context of Ed Snowden going public with his revelations. So now suddenly, are you finding that the press, the mainstream media, is taking you more seriously as well for the things that you've been warning on for years?
Well, to the contrary, yes. Well, now one thing about the Observer, they contacted me. There's been some suggestions that the Observer got their information from another blog, and I gave an interview to the person that runs that blog. That's Simon Davies, an old friend of mine, used to head up Privacy International. I'm still on the International Advisory Board of Privacy International, but we discussed ways to advance this story and show the hypocrisy of the French and the British in this matter. And the Observer was contacted. I gave an interview to Simon Davies, who put it on the privacysurgeon.com website. And then the Observer called me to verify everything I said, and I did. And they all had these declassified documents. The Observer came back and said, look, we understand that you've written some controversial things in the past. I said, yeah, to say the least. I don't work at NSA anymore. I make my living as a journalist. I do muckraking journalism, and that's very uncomfortable to certain Chardonnay swilling people that inhabit the expensive clubs and restaurants of Manhattan and D.C. But that's what I do for a living. So they were aware of this. They said they ran my quotes to the legal department of the Mail and Guardian corporate parent.
Right.
They signed off on it. The editors signed off on it. And then when the story hits, the Guardian, of course, put it on their website. And then it was on the first edition, the print edition of the Observer, the Sunday Observer.
So why did they pull it off of the online edition then?
Well, they not only pulled it off the online version, but the second print run of the Observer. They dropped my picture on the front page for one of an old and haggard-looking Mick Jagger. But it was too late. And I got a call saying it's too late. The Observer has already gone it's already running in the presses, and it goes on to the trucks and out to what the British call the news agents. They're those sidewalk stands and the places sell newspapers around Britain. So it was out there, and so it's easy to pull a website, but it's very hard to pull a print edition. You can come out with a new edition. It cost them a lot of money to do this. Why did they do it? I have to figure that I created a firestorm with my revelations about the Germans and the French, because one of the biggest German newspapers, Die Welt, also put it on their website with a picture of Angela Merkel with me with my caption underneath of my quote stating that Merkel complaining about spying was like the Inspector Renault in the movie Casablanca complaining that there was gambling going on in Rick's Cafe. I'm shocked that spying is gambling. Well, that's what she did. Well, we know Merkel.
But all of these countries, I think we just lost connection there with Wayne. All of these countries are spying on each other to the extent that they can. But as Wayne Madsen was just explaining there, then they deny that they're doing any spying on their own citizens because, oh my God, denial is the name of the game. You have to deny everything. By the way, this is a good opportunity to give out the phone number because I did want to take some calls for Wayne Madsen. So if you'd like to call in, the number is 800-259-9231. Yep, that's it. 800-259-9231. And I'd like to take a couple of questions for Wayne Madsen when he gets back on here, but also I'd like to take some of your questions personally at the top of the next hour. We're going to cover a lot more news. We've also got a segment on the rise of the machines that I want to go through with you, which explains why why the future doesn't need you. And in the meantime, check this out. Facebook censorship is continuing, and they censor anyone who talks about the Second Amendment, Chick-fil-A, Jesus, the NRA. These are all key concepts that will get you banned. And now Todd Starnes of Fox News reports that Facebook has blocked his postings because he posted support for the National Rifle Association. Facebook then later apparently apologized for blocking that. Yeah, see, they just block it by default. And then if you're powerful enough to reach the Facebook legal team, which is very, very difficult to do, then they might retract that and take off the block of your account. But that's only after the fact. By default, they block everything. And Facebook, by the way, has largely degenerated into a cesspool of trolls. And I tell you, when we post things on Facebook, the comments are so inane. They are the most... It's like these people... It's like they're not real. It's like they're computer algorithm generated. Seriously, and I think many of them are. I think something like a third of the accounts on Facebook are actually just computer systems that are just posting nonsense based on the keywords that you put out there. And that's why they seem so stupid, because these algorithms are not very advanced. In any case, we have Wayne Madsen back. The connection is a little dicey there, but he's back with us. So, Wayne, picking up where you left off there, my question to you is, why aren't the people of Germany and France thrilled that the NSA is spying on them? Because the NSA should be keeping them safe, just like they do Americans.
Well, that's what's happened. See, a lot of all these arrangements with the Germans and the French and the Dutch and the Danes and everyone else, they were done during the Cold War. But remember what happened. The Soviet Union, which was a much overplayed threat, during the Cold War, disappears, and they need a new enemy, and it became terrorism, specifically global jihadist terrorism. Yeah. And let's not talk about who has funded these terrorist groups over the years. Al Qaeda, which was organized by the CIA to fight the Soviets. The Taliban was organized by the CIA to fight the other Afghan factions. So the Muslim Brotherhood was started by British intelligence and then started working for the American intelligence. Our fingerprints are all over these groups, but they serve the purpose of providing that enemy, that suspicious, mysterious enemy that the governments need to basically cow their populations, make them live in a state of fear.
Just like out of 1984. Yeah. Is there any indication that the Observer/Guardian is going to reinstate that story, or are they now too afraid to actually print the truth on this topic?
Well, what happened was after they printed the story, and as I said, this was vetted. My past as a journalist was well known to them. People who say they didn't bother checking Google, of course they check Google. I mean, this is a major paper, major media operation that happens to own two newspapers, The Guardian and The Observer. But what happened was, I think certain European politicians and the Obama administration got nervous that the emperor has no clothes. They're not spying on terrorism. They're, as a matter of fact, you hear Merkel and Hollande complaining about the Americans are spying on us during sensitive EU-American trade negotiations. Aha, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. That they're afraid we're going to get a leg up on them on trade negotiations. In other words, Merkel cares more about Volkswagens coming to the United States and Hollande about French brie sales to the United States than they are the spying on their own people.
Sure,
that's
right.
What it boils down to.
Always the case.
And these two phonies, Hollande and Merkel, think that they can get away with this, crying these crocodile tears. They after they're kicked out of office, they ought to go on, their own television networks on
theater,
on soap operas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
great.
It's a great act they put on.
They have the acting experience. Let me get your take on this, and then we'll go to some calls for you, Wayne. The Register has announced that the Department of Defense is setting up a sentient world PSYOP simulator. That's a massive computer system that simulates the decision process of all individuals on the planet. And it even simulates media outlets and utilities and financial institutions and so on. It's going to use this to test PSYOPs to see how the population might react. What do you think about this PSYOP simulator?
Well, it makes the movie The Matrix look like a documentary of future events.
Right.
I mean, you know, this is our money being wasted on this crap. That's the only that's the only word I can use to describe it. You know, PSYOP simulators. What's the matter with the real PSYOP people? All the sock puppets, some of which attacked me immediately. By the way, I think part of what the Guardian, you know, and the Observer, what they reacted to was this same group that went after Dan Rather. You remember? They're sitting there ready and waiting to go after people. They dig. Well, this is real PSYOPs, but I guess these people, you know, they have to take a break sometimes. They got to eat. They got to go to the bathroom. So it's better, I guess, for these intelligence agencies to have, you know, some mechanism that doesn't take potty breaks and breaks and smoke breaks.
Well, right, and it's faster. I mean, they can test something and see how they think it might operate before they actually try a rollout.
Exactly. But look, you know, if the American public, you know, I love, you know, Rand Paul. He talks about how the government wastes money on robotic squirrels and the mating habits of you know, bumblebees and all this other stuff. But the American people knew some of the garbage that the intelligence community has wasted their money on.
Oh yeah.
More outrage. But isn't it funny? The intelligence community and military don't come under the austerity cuts as much as, you know, some of the other agencies do.
Well, no.
Some of them provide services, but, you know, for example, the Air Force paid a guy $50,000 to come up with a feasibility study for a Star Trek transporter device. Did he get the information? He got it from a Trekkie website and sold it to the Air Force for $50,000.
Hey, we should get into that racket, huh? Let's take some phone calls.
Has remote viewers, you know, clairvoyants that go.
That's right.
You know, talk to dead people. You know, you know. Can I say?
Yeah. Well, maybe those are the people that have the secrets, but they've been killed. And
I'd like to ask Richard Nixon if they have that capability. You know, how screwed up things are today, because even Nixon would be shaking his head over this mess.
Yeah. Well, if you walk into the NSA headquarters and you got a bunch of guys with their hands on Ouija boards, then something's definitely wrong with the intelligence community. Let's go to a caller, Frank in North Carolina. Frank, welcome to the show. You're on with Wayne Madsen. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, order out of chaos. Their order.
Right.
Sorry, my phone is just starting to go a little bit bad here. I'll make it quick. My source on this is one individual. He says he's received warnings from two individual insiders, one in military intelligence, I believe, and another one in law enforcement, I believe. David Laurie Vanderbeek, he's running for governor. I'm not sure if you guys have talked about this yet, but he sounds pretty intelligent, legitimate patriot. He says he's got these two guys that have warned him of a possible false flag attack on the Scout Jamboree on the grounds of the Bechtel Reservation in West Virginia beginning July 15th, possibly a bioterrorist false flag attack. He claims that the governor of West Virginia has already stated secretly that this area is under martial law.
All right. Well, good call, Frank. We don't want to put words into the mouth of the governor there, but it's a legitimate question. What do you think, Wayne, of the possibility of upcoming false flags?
Well, listen, after what happened at the Social Democratic Youth Camp in Norway outside of Oslo, you know, with Breivik, I wouldn't send any kids to these jamborees and these camp meetings, that especially the ones that have a lot of public attention, media attention. I just don't think we can do it anymore. Not because I'm afraid of Joe Jihadi out there setting off a bomb, but as the caller said, there's these too many anomalies with some of these attacks.
Like Boston Marathon bombing, total drill.
I won't even get into all the other. I know there's a lot of logistics questions on the ground, but the fact is that the Uncle Ruslan, is more tied up with the CIA.
We got to go to break, Wayne. Sorry to interrupt you there, but stay with us. We'll be right back after this break. More with Wayne Madsen and your calls straight ahead. This is the Alex Jones Show. Yeah, welcome back. We're interviewing former NSA insider Wayne Madsen. who is the source behind some of the documents that resulted in a Guardian story that was then yanked off the web because it made some people nervous. You know, in our world today, people who tell the truth are the most viciously attacked. If you lie to everybody, oh, you got it made. You know, you can host a show on CNN. You know, your business is going to get government grants. If you're a big fat liar, you know, no problem. You got it made. But if you tell the truth, oh no, you're going to have struggle. You're going to have to work your way and actually fend off criticism and attacks. And that's the situation that most of us are in, who are truth tellers, including Wayne Madsen. Wayne, we're going to take a couple more calls here with you, but on that last point, do you even pay any attention to the critics? Because I don't have time with it. But how do you deal with the criticism?
I did this morning. I had to fire off some rebuttals to some people who pretend that they're journalists and had to point out the background of these people. There's one guy who writes for the Daily Beast. Now, let's remember what the Daily Beast is. You know, the editor is Tina Brown, this doyen of the British Fleet Street Circuit, and now more lately of the Manhattan Chardonnay swilling crowd. The Daily Beast bought Newsweek from the Washington Post Company a couple years ago for $1. Okay,
right? I remember that. $1.
That's what the combined media operations of the Daily Beast and Newsweek are worth. $1. I would say that that's overly inflated. But so there's a guy there named Michael Moynihan. Now this guy. He was a struggling journalist in the United States, and he went where every struggling journalist goes to make a name for themselves. Stockholm, Sweden. Oh. You know, I mean, so he gets tied up with a think tank over there called Timbro that's been linked to Karl Rove, the wonderful Karl Rove. You know, this guy's a hack. He's a political party hack for the GOP. He's not a journalist, so he goes on a vicious attack, suggests that, you know, the Observer never even contacted me, which
well, let's not give him any more attention. The fact is, all of us who tell the truth are going to be just routinely attacked. It just goes with the territory. Let's take a call. Let's go to Chris in Kentucky. Chris, you're on the show. Welcome to the Alex Jones Show. Wayne Madsen is our guest. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. Wayne, I want to thank you, first of all, real quick. Thank you for being a patriot and standing up. My question is, these new phones that are coming out, is this going to be data? You move it with your eyes. You can move the web page with your eyes. And can they take a retina scan of your eyes and database in the NSA? Have you had any information about that?
Well, look, you know, let me tell you what the NSA has. They have you know, there's a group in the DOD called the DOD Advanced Research Projects Agency. As a matter of fact, what we know about metadata and PRISM was originally a project under Homeland Security and DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. It was called Total Information Awareness System. Yep. It was headed up by none other than disgraced retired Admiral John Poindexter of Iran-Contra infamy. You know, these people never go away. They never go away. So anyway, now it's known as PRISM. But NSA, and it's mostly through their R&D division there, they're always looking at the next phases. They always say, oh, we can't keep up with technology. One thing we know about the intelligence community is they drive technology. Google got its seed money from where? The CIA.
Yeah, the internet came out of DARPA. I mean,
Oracle was once the name of a CIA project on a relational database system. Now it's a big company.
We're going to go to break again, Wayne. Will you stay with us for one more segment?
Absolutely.
All right, stay with us, folks. We'll be back in just over 1 minute with more calls for Wayne Madsen. We've got Wayne Madsen continuing with us for the next 5 minutes, plus callers on the line. This is Mike Adams filling in for Alex Jones. You are in the right place if you're tuning in to the Alex Jones Show, so welcome. This is, what is this, the third hour already? How could it be? Time flies when you're being spied on. So, Wayne, there was a caller that Alex was unable to get to, I think yesterday, that had a question for you. The caller was asking, can we somehow flip the surveillance technology back onto the government? Is there a way that the citizens can monitor the government and actually create the transparency that presidents always promise but never deliver. Is that possible?
Well, I think Ed Snowden has shown it is possible. But unfortunately for him, he's wound up as an international pawn, with Vladimir Putin today saying, you know, he can stay in Russia as long as he stops making these revelations. Another person over there said he's applied for asylum in 15 countries. He's really going to wind up like a CIA whistleblower from a few decades ago named Phil Agee. Phil Agee traveled on a Grenada passport, a Nicaraguan passport, before he settled down with a German passport.
Wow.
He did eventually come back to the United States after they decided they weren't going to arrest him. But, you know, that's the life he's faced. But any whistleblowers do that. That's what they're trying to expose the government's, you know, their wrongdoings. But look at the price they paid. They've been put in jail. They've had guns drawn on them in the shower. They've lost fortunes. Their retirement nest eggs have disappeared with legal fees.
Sure.
So this is what happens to the whistleblowers.
But what if we had an initiative where we put webcams in all the offices of all government employees so that the public can log in and see what your tax dollars are doing at that moment?
You wouldn't see much. You'd see a lot of government employees sleeping or going down to fetch these styrofoam boxes full of food. They're like ants, you know. They go back and forth to the cafeterias in their federal buildings, and they're extremely obese people. I suggested to one group one time. I was in an elevator at the GSA building in D.C., and the elevator didn't move, and there were 3 rather obese persons on there, and I suggested that maybe they should take the freight elevator instead.
Oh, my.
Food. They were hauling food. This is what you would see in any given federal problem.
Well, I thought I was being politically incorrect, and here you go, breaking a new one open for us there, Wayne.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's how the government really works.
Yep. So we don't want those webcams that might be too horrifying for us.
Yeah, they would be horrifying. But look, today you can get arrested for taking a photograph of a federal office building. If you know.
I know.
You know, so lots of luck getting a webcam inside. You can't even get a camera on the outside.
Yeah, but don't we have the right? I mean, we're paying their salaries. We should have the right. Let's go to another caller, though. Habu in Wisconsin. Habu, welcome to the Alex Jones Show. You're on with Wayne Madsen.
Yeah, hello, Mike Adams and Wayne Madsen. You know, just as an aside, I hope you people in Austin take up the case of the Justin Carter kid who is facing lengthy sentences just for putting some just kidding post on Facebook. But anyway, Mr. Madison, may I ask you this for a couple of quick questions? Do you recommend people adding all these kind of tags, which would catch the emails, and if 100 million people of us did it, would it jam up the system?
Oh, the keyword tags. We only have 45 seconds. Go ahead, Wayne.
Simple answer: no. They've got all kinds of algorithms that look at context and other words, so they've figued that out. That was
keywords
years ago when Echelon was out, and people decided to do that, and it did not affect their system whatsoever.
Wayne, what's your website?
It is WayneMadsenReport.com, and anyone can go to the homepage and read about what happened with the Observer, the Guardian, and with links to the original documents that I provided them.
All right, WayneMadsenReport.com, and Madsen is spelled M-A-D-S-E-N. Madsen, 2 syllables in that name. WayneMadsenReport.com. Thank you, Wayne, for joining us on the show today.
You bet.
It's great to have you on, so stay with us. A lot more news straight ahead. This is The Alex Jones Show. All right, welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. This is Mike Adams, the Health Ranger, editor of naturalnews.com, filling in for Alex today. Thanks for joining us. This is the 3rd hour. We just heard from Wayne Madsen, and for the rest of this hour, I've got a few comments here, and then I want to take your calls and then cover some of the remaining news that we haven't yet had a chance to cover. And mention a couple of good films here. State of Mind, you got to check this out at InfoWarsStore.com. But so before I was hosting the show, one of my friends asked me, he said, Mike, are you gonna talk about same-sex marriage? Because you haven't really gone on the record. What do you think about same-sex marriage? And you're hosting Alex's show. You gotta talk about that, aren't you? Aren't you gonna talk about it? Well, I don't know. All this talk about same-sex marriage and opposite-sex marriage, and from what I hear, most Americans would be happy with any sex in their marriage. Frankly, it's a no-sex marriage. But I'm not even really sure. I'm not sure if we can enforce all these rules one way or another, because personally, I can't tell the gender of some of these people. So I'm not trying to be, insulting or anything. I'm just saying I can't tell. You've got some of these, macho gay women riding around and trying to pick up dates, riding on Harleys, like, you want to go on a ride? No, I don't want to go on a ride. Not with you. No, please, no. I mean, if you go on a date with one of these gals, it's almost like you got to buy them a plane ticket on the first date so you can march them through TSA for a gender check. You know what I mean? It's like slip a 50 to the agent and ask them, hey, what's the verdict, buddy? Am I dating a dude or a chick? I'm sorry. I know it's not politically correct. I'm just saying, why do we have to have all this discussion about all these things? And there's so many more important issues out there, like the fluoride in the water. Why do we have to be obsessed about what gender people are when they get married? I mean, how does the TSA even tell, by the way, if someone comes in and they're not sure? I mean, do they have like a gender neutral line? A pat down, like someone there named Pat doing the pat down. Hi, I'm Pat Down Pat. I'm going to pat you down today. I'm the gender neutral TSA pat down expert. I was highly trained as the head of security at Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch, and we have a very special pat down procedure that we use there. Is that the way they really do it? Seriously? But, back on the issue of same-sex marriage, I mean, come on. If Michael Moore marries Janet Napolitano, isn't that a same-sex marriage? I mean, really? Doesn't that qualify? Because, who are we to say that they can't have their fun together, their joy, frolicking in the sunset, hand in hand, bounding through fields of clover, off into the sunset? It would be wonderful. Can you imagine those two getting married up there at the altar? There's like the reverend says, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride. And then both of their heads turn like the Exorcist, 360 degrees. There is no bride. What? There's no bride? And then they start to kiss, and there's like hormones and pheromones flying and exploding every which way, like a bad scene out of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Cross-dressing transvestites appear on stage and start dancing in a musical number with Meatloaf. And then George Carlin and Richard Pryor come back to life and show up on stage, and their heads turn and see these two French kissing in matrimony, and their heads explode out of the sheer horror of it. So yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah. that's at least that's how it plays out in my head. And so go ahead and roll. That's a comedy bit, by the way, folks. That's called exercising your free speech. That's a comedy bit aimed at some public figures that deserve to be made fun of. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. So let's go to some calls, get a little more serious here. You got to have fun from time to time because it's too insane to take seriously all the time. Let's go to Phil in Florida. Phil, you're on the show. Welcome to the Alex Jones Show.
Hey, Mr. Adams. Thanks for everything. Thanks for having me on.
You betcha.
Yeah, I just had a question. I mean, I was surprised when everybody was surprised about this NA stuff, mostly because Alex and yourself have opened my eyes to exactly how corrupt and gigantic our government has become. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that the Snowden story is a distractor, but I don't know whatever happened to this Chechen dude the FBI executed over here in Orlando.
Which guy?
The Chechen guy that they were interviewing that supposedly knew the two bombers in Boston.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on that. And last thing I heard, the FBI was investigating it, and that was a month ago.
Well, this is the problem, that the scandals are coming so fast and furious, pun intended, that you don't even have time to dig into one before another one crops up. And they know that the attention span of the people is so short that they will just jump from one scandal to the next. And then when you want to go back to one that you haven't fully uncovered, they'll say, oh, that's old news, is no longer relevant. So I think that's what's happening.
I mean, if who knows what that guy had?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, supposedly he knew this kid, and now he's dead. No one can ask him. So that's what I wanted to ask Mr. Madsen. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully someone will look into it a little more.
You bet, Phil. Thanks for your call. I mean, we do know that the death squads are operating in America. Some rogue element of the government is running around killing people. We know that's true. And just for the record, I want to be on the record like Alex said, I'm not suicidal. I don't drive fast cars down the highway. I don't drink alcohol. I don't visit prostitutes. I don't use recreational drugs. I'm not into any of that stuff. So if they try to set me up with that stuff, it's staged. I mean, if I die like in a farm equipment accident, that might be real. Because it's like a John Deere ran over him or something, that could be real because I'm actually out there on the farm, but I try to be safe. So let's go to a white grand wizard in Florida. Mr. Wizard, welcome to the show.
Yes, hello, Mr. Adams. I'd like to ask Alex of InfoWars team if they're going to do a documentary or a movie on the trains, the guillotine trains, that are all around America, where they are, who built them, when they're supposed to be used, etc., that point.
Well, I will certainly pass on that comment. The thing is, I keep hearing about these trains full of guillotines. I got to profess, I've never seen any photos of this. I don't know that that's real. People keep telling me. I just don't know. Why would they use guillotines in the first place? It sounds like a lot of trouble to go through when you could just unleash a biological weapon and just do it much more quickly. I mean,
that's a good question in itself, but I've seen photos of those trains. They're three stacks high, 3 levels high, and they each have a guillotine. You ride around, you kill people, and then you dump them off in a mass grave. That's my assumption.
Well, I mean, it's just way more efficient ways to kill people. Bullets, for example. I mean, the DHS has bought all that ammunition. That's probably a much faster way. I think probably, I'm just guessing, I'm just putting this out there, that maybe these are some kind of mechanical parts that look like guillotines, but maybe they're not guillotines. I'm just saying, that's just conjecture. I profess I don't know this situation. We'll look into it. But thanks for your call, Mr. Wizard. We'll look into the guillotine situation. I don't know, man. I guess nothing would surprise me at this point. Let's go to Dylan in Minnesota, I believe. Welcome, Dylan.
Hi, Mike. I was really hoping to get through to Wayne Madsen, but I suppose I'll address my question to you. I was curious if there was any new information on Philip Marshall. He was a 9/11 researcher, and apparently he used to fly in cocaine for the CIA, which he admitted in the 80s, and he was found dead in his home with his 2 children who were also deceased. And
well, I'm not aware of any additional information on that individual. In fact, that's the first time I've heard his name. I'm sorry, I'm not a specialist on, the CIA drug running situation. But now that you put it out there here on the show, maybe others will bring some information forth on that. I appreciate your question. There's a lot of leads that need to be followed up here because I think all the evidence is out there. We don't have the manpower here at InfoWars to run like full-on investigations into every single thing that needs to be investigated. We're doing the best we can, but thank you for your tip. Maybe that'll spur some information to be brought forth. Let's go to another caller, Bobby in Texas. Thank you, Bobby. Welcome to the show.
From proudly a male warrior, Sentium World Revolutionary number 9, fighting the quantum world simulators and all those confused, at best, truly evil, most likely lockstep sociopaths waging war on all of us, especially babies.
That is quite a number there, Reefer Seed. Is this Reefer Seed?
By golly, you picked me out one more time.
Well, you have a very particular voice, but nice intro there. What's on your mind, buddy?
Well, just briefly, why not let gays just use another name than marriage, like civil unions? But more importantly, I want to thank you, Sir Mike Adams, for everything you do for all of us. And by the way, today's doubling of student loan interest rates is part of the truly evil sociopath's plan to impoverish and destroy our once proud constitutional republic.
Well, there is a plan underway. I mean, it's not only the student loan rates, it's also the health insurance rates doubling for single women in California. I don't know if you heard that earlier. The Obamacare exchanges are about to kick in. Rates are going to go up for everybody. They're trying to destroy everybody, including, as you've experienced, free speech. Are they letting you go into the Capitol building anymore and protest these days?
I'm allowed to speak at the Travis County Commissioner's Court sessions. I can speak at City Hall, but only once in every 4 meetings. But anyway, I plan to buy at least, by the way, 2 Bokashi food waste recyclers so as to have both organic and non-organic soil to work with. You know,
nice.
Of course, I prefer to buy only organic.
Reefer, we got to go to a break, but nice to hear from you again. Thanks for your call and your questions. And after this, we're going to go to more calls. So call in, and we're going to go to George, Eric, Mike, and others. Stay on the line. This is the Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back. All right, we're back on the Alex Jones Show. Thank you for staying with us. I hope you've enjoyed the show so far. We appreciate your support here at InfoWars, and I appreciate your support in particular. I am a guest volunteer host, so I guess I'm only here because the listeners like me to come back, and so Alex invites me back. So, you know, as long as he keeps doing that, I'll keep coming back, and I'll give you my take on things. And you know, I'm not going to be politically correct. I'm not going to be censored. I'm going to lay out the issues as I see them, and I'm not going to be intimidated by critics out there that want me to shut up and not talk about the issues that really matter. So, you know, there you go. I have no boss. I can't be fired. I'm not on the payroll. So there you go. That's why I'm telling the truth. Now, speaking of the truth, this is a discussion that I had planned for today, and then we'll go to your calls after this, after the next break. But this is a discussion I call the rise of the machines and why the future doesn't need you. I want to elaborate on what Alex said last week. Now, here's the thing. The technology is becoming viable now to have, in the next couple of decades, humanoid-shaped robots. They'll probably be about 5'9". They want to make them a little bit shorter than a typical, you know, American male to be slightly less intimidating. They will be powered by quantum computing processing units that have very high-end vision recognition systems, motor coordination skills, and the corporations will be able to buy them to replace workers to do light labor work. Now, the first application of this is, of course, going to be in the military. They will be soldiers on the field. They will be commanded by a human soldier that's the key decision maker, but the actual grunts that are carrying the rifles and doing the real hard frontline battle work, like defusing IEDs, that's going to be done by robotic soldiers. And we're showing on screen, by the way, an actual walking robotic soldier that's being developed by Boston Dynamics, for those of you watching on prismplanet.tv. So it is becoming a reality very quickly. And these look creepy, spooky, real-life robots, humanoid robots. But as they become less expensive and they go into mass production, then the corporations are going to start buying them to replace workers. Why is that? Main reason, unions. You see, corporations don't want to deal with unions, and if they hire robots to replace people, then they don't have to negotiate with the union for the robot. You know, I know a lot of you out there listening are in unions, and you may be thinking, holy cow, that's crazy, but it's true. Your corporation would rather not have a human do the job if they could have a robot do the job. So what's going to happen is we're going to have robots creeping into the low-level labor supply, displacing the low-level labor workers, which includes, by the way, most of the current so-called illegal immigrants, undocumented workers, who might be granted amnesty if the amnesty bill becomes law. They're going to be, you know, doing a lot of agricultural work, harvesting crops and so on. They will be one of the first to be replaced by labor robots. So you're going to have millions and millions of displaced workers who used to be undocumented immigrants, now have blue card status in the U.S. potentially, and now they're out of work. And by the way, everybody that's working in fast food, if you're a fast food cashier, your job is going to be replaced by a robot in the next couple of decades. You're going to become obsolete. This is going to happen higher and higher in the workforce as robots become more complex and more capable. What it means is that probably eventually up to 70, 80, maybe even 90% of the workforce is going to become obsolete. You get that? Obsolete in the minds of the globalists that run the system. So in their minds, they're thinking, okay, we've got robots taking over the jobs. All these billions of people are displaced out of the workforce. They've got no jobs. They've got no way to make a living. They've got no skills that we need now because the robots can do the work for them. What are you going to do if you're a globalist? Holocaust 2.0 is what you're going to do. You're going to soft kill masses of people, or you're going to put in infertility technologies to make sure that nobody can reproduce, thereby reducing the human population, leaving only the top 10% that have skills that robots can't replace. Those are skills like engineering skills, entrepreneurial skills, business, finance skills, artist skills. You know, a robot can't be an artist because it doesn't have the spirit, the free will consciousness of creation in it, like an artist can create a work of art. You're always going to have value in society. But if you're a low-end laborer out there, eventually you or your children or your grandchildren are going to become obsolete and replaced by the robots. So the solution to this, you can't stop the robots, all right? They're coming. The technology is moving forward. DARPA is doing the investments. They want the soldiers. The corporations want the workers. You can't stop that. What you can do out there is upgrade your value, invest in your own education, improve your skills. Be somebody, be somebody that has a skill that a robot can't replace, and teach your children to be that way and your grandchildren to be that way. They can be safe in a society even if there is a Holocaust 2.0 that tries to get rid of the lower class of workers that the globalists are trying to kill. That's the Rise of the Machines segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Continuing here on the Alex Jones Show, we're going to break down some more news and take your calls. Virginia college student arrested after buying bottled water. Oh my, the undercover officer thought she had alcohol in her possession when she had actually just left some kind of convenience store buying bottled water. So she was arrested because I guess there's not enough real crimes going on. So, you know, the FBI, the ATF, the alcohol enforcement people have to run around, you know, making up victims, making up their own crimes so they can arrest somebody. It's crazy. I mean, aren't there real crimes going on that you could investigate? I mean, why isn't the FBI out there, you know, investigating all the corporate corruption in the pharmaceutical industry? You want to find criminals, just go to the top of that little cabal right there. Apple applies for the iWatch trademark. Yes, a lot of people think that means that they're going to have a wearable watch technology that will, of course, watch you. So if you actually want to wear an extension of the NSA on your wrist, it'll probably monitor, you know, your heartbeat so that when you're being interrogated by the TSA at airport security, they can determine if you have an elevated heart rate or something like that. I bet it will monitor your heart rate and report it back to Apple, because there's nothing that they won't do now to violate your privacy. Another news item here, the Monsanto-funded World Food Prize has been granted to, well, Monsanto. Yes, Monsanto funded an organization that gave itself an award, the World Food Prize Award, which is granted to somebody that apparently helps advance human development by spreading genetic pollution all around the world. And so they came up with their own prize and financed it and then gave it to themselves. This would be like I don't know, InfoWars coming up with the InfoWars Award and then awarding it to Alex Jones. I mean, it's so self-serving for Monsanto to do this. It's a complete joke. You notice, by the way, at the highest levels of government and corruption, they're always giving each other awards and academic degrees and knighthoods and all these things. It's like, oh, yeah, on the day that they're bombing some innocent civilians somewhere, they'll give them, you know, the Peace Prize, the Obama Peace Prize, because his bombs are love bombs. They don't blow up, they blow in. All right, let's go to a video, then we'll go to your calls after this. Saddam was a key in an early CIA plot. It turns out this is news that is suddenly resurging in interest. Let's run this video clip about Saddam Hussein.
So we decided that Saddam Hussein ought to accept something very similar. Now, probably a lot of you know that Saddam has been our boy for a very, very long time.
This is John Perkins talking.
You may remember Abdul Karim Qasim, who was president of Iraq in the early 60s. Qasim came up with a unique concept. He said, Iraqi oil ought to go to benefit the Iraqi people. How novel is that? Well, we didn't like that very much. He began to tax the oil companies, particularly the British and some American companies, and threatened to nationalize our oil companies. And so we decided that Qasim had to go. The CIA sent an assassination team. It was headed by a man who was still going through high school, an Iraqi citizen who was still going through high school. They riddled Qasim's car with bullets on the streets of Baghdad and missed him. The head of this assassination team was wounded and fled to Syria. His name was Saddam Hussein. He was a CIA agent in those days, an assassin for us. He failed. He was our boy. He was our man. And so, and we sold him a lot of, and gave him a lot of tanks. We built him Bechtel, built him big chemical. I don't know, my father-in-law was chief architect at Bechtel. Built Saddam big chemical plants that were used, and we knew that they were used to make mustard gas and other chemical weapons that were being employed against the Kurds and later the Iranians. We knew this, but we sold him these things. You have to remember that Middle Eastern oil is the oil that's used by a great deal of Europe and China and Japan. If we control Middle Eastern oil, we control our biggest potential competitors, Japan.
All right,
China.
That's John Perkins, author of Confessions of an Economic Hitman. We got to have John back on this show, by the way. He's, we got to track him down. He's got a lot of good information. He knows how these things work. Basically, the U.S. government obviously recruits people like Saddam Hussein to do its bidding, to hijack and overthrow foreign nations and get them into debt with the World Bank so that the U.S. then has leverage to control the resources of those countries. And then the resources are then shipped out and brought back to the United States, typically oil being one of them. This is, by the way, one of the reasons why there's so much tension with Ecuador. Ecuador has a huge oil reserve there in the eastern section of the country, and it has apparently just signed over much of the exploration rights of that sector to China. Yeah, so a lot of competition going on there between the U.S. and China to get the natural resources of the world. I mean, what else? What else is it really all about? Power and domination. And let me bring you this piece of news very quickly, then we'll go to a call. Jennifer Lopez has been forced to apologize for singing Happy Birthday to a brutal Turkmen dictator accused of torture. She was singing Happy Birthday to him at a celebration concert, and she has now apologized for singing the song to the most repressive, one of the most repressive regimes in the world, according to Human Rights Watch. And in related news, Lady Gaga has changed the national anthem to end with the line, "and the home of the gay." She thinks she's living in a country that is like 90% gay or something. Maybe her supporters are, but certainly not the rest of the country. I mean, again, stop shoving it in our face, okay, Lady Gaga? You're a warped individual at every level. Airline recruits women who are thin to save fuel. That's right. I didn't say it. They said. This is on CNN. They don't want overweight airline flight attendants because they take too much fuel to fly back and forth. So they're hiring ultra-thin women who also, by the way, happen to fit through the aisles better in an emergency. That's no joke. I mean, an emergency situation, you got to be able to get your bod out of the aisle, out of the plane, and help other passengers escape. So there's actually a physical reason behind that as well. I know it's politically incorrect to talk about women being thin, but hey, that's what this airline is doing, so we're reporting the news. Let's go to George in Connecticut. George, thank you for holding and welcome to the show.
Hi, Mike. I have a comment and also a question. Quick comment is, I know you did a movie, or not a movie, a documentary with Gary Knoll on the genetically engineered seeds. He has a great idea that he started up with his radio show. He basically, you can dial in and listen to the show while you're, you dial into that number and it'll automatically, you don't need any special app or anything like that. I think Alex should do something like that. And what we should do is have hundreds of people meet up at government buildings, and like the walls of Jericho, they turn on the show and then have an amplifier and take the walls down of the building.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, well, yeah, Gary Knoll's great, and I really like his work in nutrition and truth-telling on issues like vaccines as well. I believe he's on the Progressive Radio Network, PRN. I think that Alex's audience is so large that if there was a call-in number, it would be overwhelmed. They'd have to have like an NSA-style data system here just to handle all those phone calls. But it's an interesting idea for sure. Do you have another question?
I have a question on something that Alex was talking about on Friday. Maybe you can help me fill it in, or if you can't, maybe you can talk to Alex and he can get more details on it. That idea that he was talking about, that they basically have in the Obamacare, that basically gives them up to a 12-year amnesty on any illegals working, so they don't have to work less than 30 hours to avoid the penalty or the cost of Obamacare, that basically makes American citizens second-class citizens in their own country when it comes to hiring. So I would like to know what that specific where he got that information, because I've been trying to find it and I can't find it, and I'd like to bring that up with the immigration bill, because if we can add that with the immigration bill, that's almost a killer app if it's for these people.
Well, good question, George. I'll run that by Alex. He might even be hearing your comment right now. Look, the thing is, almost nobody knows what's in this bill. That's the thing. It's just like Obamacare. You know, Pelosi's saying, let's pass it so we can find out what's in it. It's so massive, and it's so full of pork and deception, and you have to navigate it like a minefield, a linguistic minefield, just to figure out what's in it. But you can bet it's bad for America. So it is true that the amnesty bill is going to try to give corporations preferential benefits if they hire these newly documented, formerly illegal, undocumented immigrants over Americans. And that's absolutely true, because this bill is designed to destroy America. It's not a human rights bill. It is an economic destruction bill for America. And any Republicans, by the way, that get behind it are just committing political suicide. So it needs to be fixed in a huge way. Let's go to Mike in Denver. Mike, thank you for your call. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Mike, how's it going today?
It's going pretty good. Are you enjoying the show?
You know, you're coming along so great. I was going to tell you that from the very first time I heard you guest host till today, you're just spectacular. So.
Oh man, well,
keep up the good work.
We're doing our best. That's all. What's your question or comment?
You know, comment out here in Denver, I don't think many of us are going to follow the gun laws, and on the 10th, it's going to actually go to the federal court to see if we can suppress those.
Yeah.
Our sheriffs did a good job with that.
Yeah.
My question, given the GMO, how much is actually in the food supply, is probably not coming out. So is there something that can counter it besides just not buying it?
So what's your question then?
Well, there's so much wheat and corn GMO that's not labeled and is in the food supply.
Yeah.
And we probably can't get it back out of the food supply, so I'm wondering what will counter that.
Oh, well, I think that if we stop planting genetically modified corn and soy, the two largest, and cotton, the three largest GMO crops, remember, wheat is not yet commercially, genetically modified, even though it's been contaminated as such. But if we stop planting it, then I think the GMOs will definitely go drastically down. We may never get rid of them. You're exactly right on that point, because of the genetic pollution and contamination issue, but we can at least get them out of the food supply. A lot of people don't know that a food can be labeled as GMO-free even when it has typically up to 0.5% of GMOs in it. So there's even GMOs in the foods that are certified GMO-free. It's a trace level, but you can't get it completely out of the food. A lot of people don't know that. There's some things about the food supply that most Americans have no idea. For example, the USDA certified organic seal does not certify that your food doesn't have super high levels of lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, and other heavy metals in it. They're not tested at all. So you can have certified organic food grown in China, imported into the United States, sold at health food stores that is heavily contaminated with lead, which causes developmental, cognitive impairment in children, and also causes mental retardation, which I think we're seeing in the culture. So I hope that answers your question. I got off on a little tangent there. Anyway, but thank you for your call there, Mike. Let's go to Eric in Tennessee. Eric, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, Mike, how's it going today, bud?
It's going pretty good. I'm having a good time here today, trying to mix it up and inform people and not make not have it too boring at the same time.
Yeah, well, you went off on quite the tangent with the Napolitano thing there. That was visually striking.
Yeah, wasn't it? Do you like that idea of Michael Moore and Janet Napolitano in Matrimony?
Up in my throat a little,
Yeah, exactly. I know the feeling. Go ahead, sir.
I had just a couple of comments. I mean, I see these guys like Snowden, and to me, it looks like, it really takes me back to the Revolutionary War. It's like they're running through the streets yelling the British are coming.
Yeah.
Those are our guys. And if the American people won't stand up for them and make more noise to get them back in this country and get them free and let that information out, we've already lost.
Well, yeah, that's the big issue, and that's what Snowden said was his greatest fear, is that the American people become aware of all of this, and then they sit back and do nothing. And the theory of why that's happening, at least the theory here at InfoWars, and I agree with it, is that the people are so dumbed down, they're brain-numbed zombies in a very chemical sense. They're, it's the fluoride, it's the heavy metals in the food that we just talked about, it's the GMOs, it's all these things. People are being stupefied. That's not the correct use of that term, but they're being made into brain-dead zombies by the chemical assault, which is deliberate, I believe.
Now, since I started listening to Alex Jones, it's been about a year and a half since I actually woke up and looked around and saw the disaster that was going on around me. I've turned off my Dish Network.
Yep.
Completely. I've cut myself off from all of that mainstream crap. I don't even look at it online anymore.
Yeah.
I get my news directly from Infowars.com. I listen to Glenn Beck occasionally. I know that's a no-no, but he does make some good points, and he does give tips to Alex Jones every once in a while. He will kind of nod his way, even though he says he tries to kill him, which I don't understand that.
No, I don't get that either. I listen to Glenn Beck maybe once a month when somebody sends me a tip, but the last tip he had is going to be this huge announcement that would bring down the government, and I was like, wow, cool, Glenn Beck is going to do some big whistleblowing thing, and then the next day it was like nothing, and he never talked about it. I don't know what happened.
I think he got pressured just like they got pressured in the UK and pulled that story from the paper.
Why would you pre-announce it? If you have intelligence that's going to, quote, bring down the government, you don't go on the air the day before and announce that you have that information.
Oh, he was eating crow for a week over that, but the government had to have leaned on him. Somebody somewhere leaned on him and said, you do this. If you do this, you're a dead man.
Well, yeah. If you have that information, you got to get it out immediately so that you aren't the person that they can kill to stop it. But that to me, that was a big disappointment in Glenn Beck. Now I know it could happen to anybody. Maybe his source changed his mind, and so that promise was broken to him. Maybe it's not his fault. I don't know. But I hear you. Do you have another question?
Yeah, I have one more comment. The Xbox 360 that they're replacing with the Xbox One. The Kinect sensor that you put on the old 360?
Right.
I unplugged mine like a year ago.
Yeah, because it's watching you.
It unplugs from the back of the 360. I don't know, a lot of people don't seem to realize that, but you can just unplug that bad boy. It's not as sensitive and it's not as good, but if you turn it on picture mode, that thing has a better camera than my camera phone.
Well, not only can you unplug it, but you can take your Xbox 360 and you can set it on some cinder blocks, and you can blast it with a Barrett 50 cal. That also renders it inoperable. So That's what I would suggest to do in legal and lawful areas only. But thanks for your calls. More straight ahead. This is the Alex Jones Show. We'll be right back. All right, we're back in the last segment here on the Alex Jones Show. We're going to continue with your calls in a minute. I want to plug this book that I think is really important for our time. It's called The Founder's Bible, The Origin of the Dream of Freedom by David Barton. The Founder's Bible. This was sent to me recently by a friend. And this Bible not only is a Bible, but it's a New American Standard Bible with lots of explanations, but also it goes into the history of America and why it is a nation that was founded on Christian principles and beliefs, and how that became part of the philosophy that was eventually encoded in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and many other key documents and key decisions. So check out that book, and also check out this movie, State of Mind, The Psychology of Control. This is available at InfoWarsStore.com. It's called State of Mind. I can't wait to see this video. Like I said, guys, I'm stealing this copy, okay? I'm taking it home. They said the case might be empty. Is that's like your theft-proof copy here in the studio? There's all kinds of interesting things here behind Alex's desk. I'm not going to steal anything, I promise. But State of Mind is one of the videos that, it ships out on the 15th of July. Okay, let's go to your calls. Jamie in Michigan. Jamie, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, Mike.
Hey.
I had 2 comments and a question for you. I'll try to make them quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first comment is I've been pretty awake since 9/11, and I've progressively got more and more upset with not being able to figure out what to do about it. And I watched Network, and the movie where the guy freaks out on the newscast show.
All right.
And he gets all the people to scream at the same time. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. And I thought we should have a time at 1 p.m., at least one day a week. You should voice your opinion. Call your senator. Call your congressman. That's what I've been doing, calling Alex Jones Show at 1 p.m., doing something to literally make your voice be heard.
Good advice. Yeah, absolutely. People should exercise that. But see, everybody's being scared into a state of cowardice where they think that voicing your opinion is not acceptable or politically correct. You're not supposed to speak out in America. That's the new thing.
But those of us who aren't afraid, who are willing to stand up for liberty and say, I'm not afraid of you, our voices will be heard by those people who are afraid.
That's right.
We do have some people on our side, and it'll snowball effect. 1 p.m. I'm really trying to promote this amongst everybody I know. I got a group. I'm mad at telling I'm not going to take it anymore on Facebook.
Yeah.
For people to, join up, trying to get people active.
All right, so the group name is I'm Not Going to Take It Anymore?
I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to
the whole
take it
thing.
anymore.
Okay, I'm mad as hell.
And it has
right.
a little rock fist next to it. It's an open group. You might have to ask to join, accepting all invitations.
All right. Well, that's cool. People, you can check out the group. I'm mad as hell, not going to take it anymore. Group on Facebook. Thanks for the call. But I agree with you, Jamie, that we got to voice our opinions. That's why I'm here. I know that's why Alex is here as well. Let's go to Michael in Texas. Michael, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for taking my call, Mike. Just a couple of things. Yeah, you are a favorite. We're glad to have you on the show. Anytime you come on, we're glad to have you here.
Well, thank you, sir.
Well, and I'd like to make a comment about Ronnie Reeferseed. He is one fantastic info warrior.
Yeah.
He doesn't miss a commissioner's meeting. He's down at City Hall every chance he gets. And if all the listeners would at least put out half of that effort, we can get a whole lot further along down the road.
Well, I know Reeferseed, and that's why they're trying to shut him up, because he's the guy who's actually out there asking questions of the the city council. I mean, everybody should be doing that. Oh, hey, sir, Michael, I apologize, but we have reached the end of the show. So I got to let you go there. But thank you all for listening today, and thank you for your calls. Thank you for all of you for your support. Infowars.com is the website where you can check out the news. Infowars Store, the products that support this broadcast. Thank you, crew, for your great job today. And thank all of you for putting up with me. I'll be back whenever Alex asks me back. This is Mike Adams signing off on The Alex Jones Show. Take care, everybody.